According to Twitter, only 31.6% of you guys actually read quest text. Most of the time, you're not missing out on much, but sometimes the quest text gives a lot of context to places you've been. All over the lands of Kalimdor, there are zones with unique stories told through quest text or some other outside source. After this video, you'll be playing with your friends and you'll be like, did you know this was the spot where Thrall and Malfurion got in a knife fight over claiming the lands of Ashenvale? And your friend will be all like, yeah, no, that's cool, dude, but please help. There's 3 rogues on me, please. So get your disposable camera ready, apply the sunscreen, get those Hawaiian t-shirts on, because we're going on a Kalimdor lore safari. Azshara is known for being a barren wasteland when it comes to actually doing quests, but these peaceful yet haunted lands still have some stories to tell. In the southern part of the zone, you can find a lot of these crystals. What are these crystals? Well, they're called azurite. No, not azurite, the crystals we find in BFA, azurite. But what is similar about these two things is that they're both shit. But azurite is literal. Azurite is mountain giant poop, and mountain giant poop is an amazing material to craft weapons and armor, especially weapons and armor that contain energy, because azurite is great at focusing large amounts of power. My first reaction when finding out this information is, wow, why is there so much in-depth lore about mountain giant poop in the Warcraft universe? Turns out a lot of this information comes from quests in Cataclysm, because the goblins inhabited much of Azshara to harvest this excrement. Azshara is in the northern reaches of Kalimdor, so that means that there is an abundance of Night Elf ruins. The ruins in Azshara are the remains of a city called Eldareth. Long ago, the magically gifted highborn elves inhabited the city. And get this, there is a comic called The Pearl of Pandaria that was released before the Mists of Pandaria ever came out. I didn't even know this comic existed, but it talks about how the Pandaren had contact with the highborn thousands and thousands of years ago. Back then, the Pandaren observed the Highborn's culture, seeing that magic was the crux of their society. The Pandas thought this wasn't the wisest move, and as a parting gift, they gave the elves of Eldareth an ornate box that was told to have all the magic that they'd ever need. The titillated and magic-addicted elves opened the box with bated breath to see the box was empty. Okay, so I understand the pandas were trying to be like these wise grandmasters teaching the elves a valuable lesson, but here's the thing. Highborn need magic to survive. Without it, they just wither away and die. This is like having a person starving on an island and you float down and give them a bag of McDonald's and they open it and there's nothing inside and you go, ha ha ha, just don't eat, you're welcome, and then you just float away.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
In Eldareth, there was also an ancient artifact called the Crystal of Zin Malor, a relic that could harness strong arcane energy for those that could truly wield its power. The power-hungry Highborn yoinked the crystal and went over to Winterspring. In Winterspring, we can find even more Highborn ruins that are still haunted by its inhabitants. A lot of the Highborn society was utterly destroyed during the Sundering, a massive explosion that split the world apart and was mainly caused by, well, the Highborn. And speaking of Highborn being stupid, through a druid called Kellic Skykeeper, we find out that generations and generations of elves have died trying to harness the power of the Crystal of Zin Malor, and they just kept killing themselves out of greed. The relic was ultimately taken to Darnassus and locked up so no greedy idiots could ever kill themselves again. In the snowy zone, there is also a cave called Mazthrill. What's interesting about this cave is that in Classic it was taken over by a bunch of blue dragons, but in Cataclysm it was taken over by a dude named Umbrance the Spirit Breaker. If you've ever done the Sunken Temple before, you've gotten the quest item Essence of Aranicus off of the last boss. The quest that item starts ultimately takes you to Umbrance, and in Cataclysm it's revealed that he's actually been absorbing dragon essences for his own personal gain, like he's the goddamn Dragonborn. I bring this up because I find it hilarious that players in the Sunken Temple not only help accidentally summon Hakar, but they also help some random power-hungry dragon sucker as well. So in Cataclysm, we give him a taste of his own medicine. Felwood is easily the most dangerous and haunted zone within all of Kalimdor. During the Third War, demons invaded Azeroth with their main goal to destroy Mount Hyjal. In order to weaken the elven defenses and gain a foothold in Azeroth, the Dreadlord Tichondrius used the Skull of Gul'dan to corrupt all of northern Ashenvale, aka Felwood.
By the power of Sargeras, I, Tichondrius, will claim these lands in the name of the Burning League.
Shut up, bitch! Oh my god! What about that?
Illidan was not a fan of this and traveled to the Corrupted Woods to stop its spread and save his people. And well, the Skull of Gul'dan was pretty powerful, so if he could get his hands on that, that would be great. Illidan defeated Tichondrius with a powerful rock bottom, even though he just saved not only his people, but all of Kalimdor from a serious threat. Malfurion, his brother, still banished him from their society for using demonic power, and Illidan left to go search for even more power.
Shut your mouth and look at the rock. Read the rock's lips. Jabroni. Jabroni. XYZ. ABC. Oh, it doesn't matter how you spell jabroni.
This is where we're at in Classic. Even if the corruption was stopped, there was still a demonic scar placed on Kalimdor, and surely the warlocks and the demons residing within the zone are trying to spread their influence. A demonic hotspot is the ancient Night Elven burrows of Jadenar, named after their daddy, Kil'jaeden. It was here where we can find the remnants of the Shadow Council. Nearby, there are multiple outcroppings where satyrs reside. Satyrs used to be night elves who have succumbed to, well, the ancient satyr curse. The curse originated from a highborn named Xavius, who was twisted into the first satyr after failing to do Sargeras' bidding. Xavius then spread his affliction to a bunch of night elves. Within Felwood, there is a constant struggle between the corruption that dwells within it and the Emerald Circle, a subsect of the Cenarian Circle whose main focus is purifying all of Felwood. And in Kata, we can see that they are somewhat successful and created the Whisperwind Grove, but the conflict between the two forces is still prevalent today.
And all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal
demonic
growth. How dare you!
Now, despite Illidan and the Night Elves' efforts to stop the Legion, Mount Hyjal was ultimately damaged when Malfurion blew a horn and wisps engulfed Archimonde and he exploded, and the whole event damaged the tree, meaning that immortality of the Night Elves was no more. This whole event made Malfurion very, very sleepy, and he took a very long nap. While Malfurion was in his coma, Fandral Staghelm took his place as the leader of the Druids. His first action as leader was to make a new world tree, with blackjack and hookers. At the Circle of Ancients in Darkshore, a new tree called Teldrassil, aka Crown of the Earth, was formed. Unfortunately, this world tree would not grant the elves immortality again because Nozdormu was the one to bless Hyjal, but he refused to bless Teldrassil because, I don't know, he's a big jerk. The Night Elves would enjoy their cool treehouse for a while, but it didn't take long to notice that something was up. The tree became plagued with some sinister presence. Local wildlife like the furbolgs and the grell became mad. Satyrs started appearing, and the beaches of Darkshore were covered with sea creatures trying to escape some dark presence coming from the ocean. The source of this corruption would not be revealed until Wrath of the Lich King in the book Stormrage. In the book, Malfurion wakes up from his nap in the Emerald Dream and discovers the source of the corruption was Fandral! Now, the explanation I'm going to share with you right now is 100% real, and it is not made up in any way, and this is how the actual lore happened. Back during the War of the Ancients, so thousands and thousands of years ago, Malfurion fought Xavius, that guy that turned people into satyrs, and Malfurion defeated him by turning him into a tree, and he threw him into the ocean. During the scuffle, Tyrande was kidnapped by satyrs, and this made Malfurion very, very sad. It made him so sad that he almost drowned a whole Night Elven army in a storm caused by his sadness. Again, no, not making this up. Meanwhile, Tree Xavius was floating around in the ocean, and it's presumed that there was some sort of old god influence to save his life, kinda like Queen Azshara. Tree Xavius was said to be washed up on Azshara, but disappeared sometime after. We don't really know what happened to him. But that's not the point. The point is Xavius was able to transcend between the real world and the Emerald Dream, and was able to contact Fandral Staghelm. But the thing is, he contacted him as Fandral's own son, Valston Staghelm. You see, Fandral was really guilty after losing his son in the War of the Shifting Sands. No! Yeah, I have a whole video about that, so you can watch it if you'd like. The point is, Fandral would stop at nothing to get him back, and Xavius used this to his advantage and convinced Fandral to fuse a corrupted branch onto Teldrassil when it was being formed. So when the Cenarian Circle fed powers into the tree, they'd be feeding the corruption as well. Xavius also convinced Fandral to use a herb called Morrograin to keep Malfurion unconscious and stuck in the Emerald Dream, where Xavius could torture him mentally and physically, like turning him into a tree and forcing him to watch his brother make out with his girlfriend, Tyrande. Eventually, Malfurion defeated Xavius in the dream and woke up and brought the truth to not only the Night Elven people, but Fandral himself. His grand illusions of his son was shattered when he got to see him die again, right in front of him. This broke the former Archdruid, and he fell into utter madness, and was locked inside the prison under Hyjal, so that he may recover from this catastrophic destruction of his very existence, where he would continue to contemplate what exactly was real, and suffer with the guilt of his dead son. Meanwhile, Malfurion and Tyrande had a lovely wedding, and Alexstrasza and Ysera showed up to bless the tree so nothing evil would happen to it ever again. Well, maybe that's a story for another time.